been accused by the Conservatives of lying to the public over the financial black hole.
Ago Rachel Reves, she's been accused of misleading the British public by allegedly cooking up a £20 billion black hole that simply didn't exist.
It was In a dramatic escalation of the UK's political crisis, Chancellor Rachel Reves faces allegations of orchestrating a £22 billion fiscal deception that critics are labelling the largest financial scandal in British history. Despite her insistence that the figures have been misinterpreted, the live television exposure and subsequent leak of internal documents have shattered her credibility, fueling a wave of public fury that has brought protesters to the gates of Parliament demanding her immediate resignation. With the government's economic narrative in tatters, the situation has moved beyond typical political fallout, as rumours of a landmark Supreme Court intervention and a total collapse of public trust suggest that both the Chancellor's career and the stability of the current administration are now in jeopardy.
The country on November the 4th, you warned that we'd all have to contribute to filling this financial black hole. But you already knew at that moment that the OBR had assessed that your plans at that point, let's be clear, the plans that you'd given them at that point would deliver a surplus of £4 billion. Why did you lie to the country?
I'm a Labour Chancellor. I want to reduce child poverty. I make no apologies for that.
I just asked you, did you lie?
Of course I didn't.
A wave of intense scrutiny has reportedly engulfed the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reves, following a high-profile television appearance where she was accused of fabricating a £22 billion black hole in the national budget. Critics argue that this figure was not a genuine accounting discovery, but a calculated manoeuvre to justify a massive £30 billion tax raid on the British public. During a particularly sharp exchange, the interviewer reportedly presented an official Office for Budget Responsibility (OBR) report indicating that the Treasury was actually looking at a £4.2 billion surplus weeks before the Chancellor announced her emergency measures. This revelation has led to accusations that the government intentionally misled the public to facilitate a redistribution of wealth from private businesses to state-funded social welfare programmes. The fallout from these allegations has been particularly severe among the elderly, many of whom believe their winter fuel payments were stripped away based on a false premise of national bankruptcy. As pensioners voice their outrage, petitions calling for the Chancellor's immediate dismissal have reportedly surged past 132,000 signatures. The narrative of a calculated heist has taken root, with many citizens feeling that the government has prioritised new arrivals and expanded benefits over the welfare of those who have contributed to the system for decades. This sentiment is further fueled by viral clips of the Chancellor's interview, where her attempts to hide behind productivity downgrades were dismantled by data showing significant wage growth that she allegedly ignored. The scandal has also cast a shadow over Prime Minister Keir Starmer, whose previous staunch defence of Reves has reportedly been replaced by a deafening silence. Opposition leaders suggest that the fallout from this £22 billion falsehood could lead to a double resignation, as constitutional lawyers debate whether knowingly misleading Parliament constitutes a criminal offence or criminal misconduct in public office. The situation is further complicated by recent high-profile exits, such as the reported resignation of Angela Rayner following a seaside property controversy, which Nigel Farage has cited as evidence of a dark year for the Labour Party. Farage has insisted that a Supreme Court investigation is now unavoidable, framing the crisis as a choice between a voluntary resignation or a forced legal removal. Beyond the political theatre, the economic impact of the Chancellor's policies is being felt across the small business sector, where tax hikes are reportedly being used to fund a significant expansion of the welfare state. Analysts warn that if the Chancellor is found to have engineered a redistribution of wealth based on a fabricated deficit, the consequences for the party's future could be fatal. Inside the Labour Party, backbenchers are reportedly expressing private panic, fearing the reaction of their constituents as the gap between the government's rhetoric and the reported fiscal reality continues to widen. With the game potentially up, the focus has shifted to how many more financial secrets may remain concealed within the Treasury's books.
Accused of lying to the country after it emerged that she never faced the £30 billion black hole she used to justify the massive tax raid that she did on Wednesday. For weeks, the Chancellor warned that Britain was facing a looming crisis, even hinting that she might raise income tax, which would have been a breach of Labour's manifesto because the books were in such dire shape. But here's the big revelation today, that actually the OBR, which is the government's own financial watchdog, had told Rachel Reves back in September that the black hole didn't actually exist. And by October 31st, they'd actually told her that she was sitting on a £4.2 billion surplus. Despite this, 4 days later, on November the 4th, she marched into a Downing Street press conference warning that the forecasts had been much worse than expected and that taxpayers basically needed to brace for pain. She said everyone must do their bit. Reform and the Tories are calling for Rachel Reves to resign. They're saying that she was just trying to soften up the £26 billion tax rate for voters. The tax rate wasn't necessary because the economy demanded it, but because basically she wanted to spend more on welfare to keep her Labour MPs happy. Number 10 today said that Rachel Reves set out her choices clearly in the budget, but I don't think this explains why the Chancellor kept talking up a crisis that the OBR said never existed. So there's big questions for the Chancellor, but there's also big questions for the Prime Minister. If a Chancellor raises taxes on the back of a crisis that didn't exist, can she really stay in the job?
The destruction of fiscal credibility. The current political landscape in the UK has reportedly shifted toward a state of profound financial scepticism following a high-profile television interview that critics have labelled a .47 humiliation for Chancellor Rachel Reves. This broadcast served as the catalyst for a ferocious assault in the House of Commons led by Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, who accused the Chancellor of orchestrating a campaign of misinformation regarding the national budget. Badenoch dismantled the government's economic narrative, characterising the black hole in public finances as a fabrication designed to justify a budget for benefits that penalises productivity and hard work. Observers noted that the Prime Minister appeared visibly shaken as the moral foundations of his administration were systematically challenged, with every fiscal excuse being met with data regarding a hidden budget surplus. A highly personal and political confrontation. During the heated exchange, the Chancellor reportedly attempted an emotional defence, referencing the immense pressures of her office in a way that some have interpreted as a bid for public sympathy. While viral clips of this moment have amassed millions of views, Kemi Badenoch dismissed the performance as pathetic, asserting that the Chancellor was fully aware of the responsibilities inherent in the third most powerful office in the country. This interaction has been described by commentators as one of the most brutal parliamentary destructions of a Chancellor in modern history. The confrontation focused on the specific question of why working families should be forced to subsidise an expansion of the welfare state, a question that Reves reportedly struggled to address as her Iron Chancellor image was relentlessly mocked. Allegations of systemic gaslighting and cover-ups. The controversy has expanded into a broader moral crisis, with political strategists and media anchors alleging that the government has engaged in a deliberate strategy of gaslighting the public. Accusations have surfaced that the Treasury disregarded positive economic data to inflict financial pain on taxpayers, while simultaneously buy the loyalty of dependent groups through welfare handouts. The Chancellor's performance during interviews where she was accused of feigning earpiece failures to avoid difficult questions has only intensified the public's incandescent rage. Furthermore, reports of an internal cover-up operation at Downing Street have surfaced, with insiders suggesting that the administration is in a state of panic as legal teams prepare cases for the Supreme Court to investigate potential criminal misconduct in public office, economic fallout and the collapse of moral authority. The real-world consequences of this perceived deception are becoming measurable, with economic analysts pointing to a country buckling under historic tax burdens and a revolting agricultural sector. Investors are reportedly abandoning the UK, and foreign suppliers have expressed hesitation about investing in a country where the regulatory and fiscal framework feels unstable. For many Britons, the missing billions in the budget have become a symbol of a monumental betrayal, particularly for retirees who feel they were forced into financial hardship while the government sat on an unacknowledged surplus. As petitions for impeachment surge and the Prime Minister's approval ratings hit historic lows, the administration appears stripped of its moral authority to govern, leaving Keir Starmer facing the prospect of a political revolution fueled by a united nation in disgust.